Well, folks, how y'all doing today? Now, folks, people often ask me, what sort of community am I talking about that I'd actually like to build? Well, all right. If, again, I could just and be the sort of, Tiberius, the great urban planner, you know, I would first off, well, there's the first few fundamentals that I would build in. One, there would be no water being exposed to waste. One. And two, all the waste carbon dioxide from heat, from burning of any sort, would be pumped somewhere to produce more biomass because we would be utilizing maximal sun, biomass, wind, and thermal and geothermal energy, as well as any hydroelectric potential that was possible. Yeah. Okay. So, with that in mind, this is how I plan these out. This is where the sun comes up. This is the arc of the sun. This is noon. That's sundown. Okay? So, I would face everything in a other semicircle around, and then this would be long, say 20, 30 acres, right? And divide these into arcs. You could make more of these inside. Now, the basic idea would be that I would slope everything down so that water and gravity would work for us. So, the houses here on the circle, their waste and their wastewater, runoff water. The runoff water I would probably keep with the house to use for just to produce hydrogen right on site. It just takes a little bit of electricity and a spinning wind wheel. It's extremely simple to produce hydrogen. It's extremely simple to produce. And anyway, and it's very easy to utilize for electricity, for heat, okay? Now, the waste, though, sewer, okay, have run down and collect up, okay? And then, essentially, what I would do is put it into a very large vat tube that went at a very, very gradual slope, okay? That would have a clear, let's call it plexiglass top, though it could be any other material, and maybe that's the wrong material I'm thinking here. The idea would be that the sun would be focused into this through mirrors. Wham! So just get blasted with sunlight down the run of this, say, a couple acres, okay? Which is, say, 500 feet, all right? Then, now, it goes into a deeper tank. The sediment sludge is actually separated off. That is taken out and dried. It can just be put into big solar-powered rooms that will dry it. Now, we'll get back to that later. It can be used for a lot of things. The water is put into what is essentially a boiler. Okay, it has a big coil that goes into it that's powered by both solar and wind, and then the sun putting in these mirrors again. Now, between that, water will boil. Okay, it boils off, goes up into a cooling tower, nice, simple, goes back down and is utilized as gray water. The gray water will go to growing biomass crops, say somewhere in here, okay, somewhere in this area here, and this is just laurel, fast-growing hardwoods, any fast-growing hardwood that can be readily dried out, ground up, and burnt for biomass, okay? You say, why? Well, that's electricity, that's torsional power, that's factories, that's, okay? And of course, you can take the carbon dioxide from all these processes and put them back into the biomass by pumping it out over there and spraying it onto them nice and safely. You also could, say you have greenhouses for your agricultural community here, because that's the idea, is that all this will be a green, carbon neutral agricultural community, mainly with a certain amount of professionals and a certain amount of other middle class people, but mostly people who farm. Now, their greenhouses can be fumigated with carbon monoxide, nice and easy. Their tractors can be moved with carbon monoxide or hydrogen or both, nice and easily. Do you see? This means that this community can be fuel independent. Do you see? These houses can be collectively fuel independent and independent individually, thus strong as a unity. Do you see? Right. Because the idea is that basically if even any of the green works on any day, that's a lot of electricity produced between all of these. And there'll always be surplus. And so you can power industries with electricity or from biomass. And if you do this, and the biomass is putting the water back into what's waste, okay, and the carbon dioxide back into biomass, you're basically carbon neutral, and you're as green as any green freak hippie with their bone through their nose and all that other lie will be, because you're working your butt off to have it so, you know. Don't get me wrong, farming's not an ideal, like, lounge, right? It's hard, you know, okay, but having machines that are powered by these things makes it easier. It makes it so that you can farm more, faster, with a greater return and a higher standard of expected living. That's another thing, is the homes themselves wouldn't be stick homes above ground. You ever seen The Hobbit? Right. Much easier to heat, much easier to cool. Do you see? And basically, this is one of those individual things. The roof area and the walls outside can be 1,000 things that aren't trees. As long as it doesn't add, it won't mess with the structure underneath, you know, which would be basically a concrete structure that would be buried and sealed, and then the inside would be made to be, you know, finished. However, well, again, that's one of those things many of you could just do yourself, however you want it, really. You see, right? Now, it's not hard, you know. Moreover, inside each house, I would have a well in the basement of the house that was secure. So you'd have your own secure water supply that couldn't be cut off, and these wells would be multi-powered. The first primary pump I would have it's called a ramjet, and it works by air pressure. They almost never die. Okay, you know. So basically, you know, you'd always have water, and from that, as long as you had some wind power or some solar, you could apply electrodes, electrolysis, to this water and produce hydrogen. And from hydrogen, you have flame, you have engines, you get it, electricity, you have everything you need, okay? And it burns back to water, which can be returned to the air, and a little bit of nitrogen pollutants, but they're not significant. They're not, you know. Moreover, in the original sewer pipe thing I was talking about, you could have large electrodes powered by this way too, that would electrolyze the solution and create peroxides. I mean, I'm not exactly dumb about chemistry and physics here, people. You know. Now, what this would allow is for this community to be energy independent, to be industry independent, to be autarkic. They could be their own little cell. And there could be thousands of these. Do you understand? And because basically, yes, it takes a lot of resources to build all these things, but the idea is this community people would seek to not only go after these green technologies, but to try to develop them such that they were longer lasting and better performing. This can be done. I mean, we have materials already in existence that'll make the wind fans, for instance, they can outlast our lives, you know, and still be turning out electricity. Do you understand? It comes down to, really, for this community, what's more important? A dollar investment now or your freedom later? It's just that easy. That's part of the other thing is your freedom worth all this work? Because remember, these technicians taking care of all this solar stuff are going to have to be Johnny on the spot. There's day-to-day problems that need fixed, there's, you know, and the administrators, the upper class, you know, they're not going to be lounging around either. They're going to have to do tough things like figure out how much oil can be made from this, how much electricity can be produced from that, what's the trade-off of having oil versus this, you know, okay? And, you know, if you've ever seen my theories on leadership, they'll be judged severely if they fail, as they should be, but they'll be rewarded if they succeed, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Life. See, this is about creating a living community here that lives in, I don't want to say harmony with nature and all that hippie junk, but that utilizes the energy provided by the sun, the energy provided in these biomass sources, that utilizes gravity to our use. Do you understand what I'm saying? right? And that relies on a good, healthy dose of just good old common sense. You know, wells in the basement can't be taken from a person unless their house is actually stormed. And since an underground house is effectively a bunker, oh, did that? Oh, is it? Oh, well, do you understand? And if these were placed about every 200 feet apart in 3 belts, 500 feet separate from each, do you know? You might be a sucker to try to want to run into that from any direction that I can think of. Particularly from the direction where everything slopes off to. Who would really want to try to even come at you? See? I mean, just think about this. If this community can focus the sun at water to boil it, why can't they twirl these mirrors around and focus them on other targets? And simply cook them like ants. Right. So you see, all of this is not just hippie nonsense. I'm not a hippie. I'm not a pacifist. All of this is, look, we want peace. All of us desire peace. All of us like life. I like to garden. I mean, I'm not the best at it. I do slack off on it, I'll admit. But, I do in general like to go outside and say, oh, look, these are plants are growing that I planted. Okay? Do you know? Right? Right. But if someone tried to touch them, I'd have no problem putting a brick into their head. Do you see? And this community is the same thing. These houses are meant to have children and life and this and that. But if people come to try to sack the town, the people got to be able to defend themselves. They have to be able to live, and they have to be able to live. They have to be able to live, and that's it. Do you see? There's nothing else to it. It's just that I would rather live more in harmony with the cycles of life and nature that God has created in this nature around us, in this creation that was created for our good. You understand? There are rules, and if you follow them, you will go to life. And if you don't, I don't want to be. So, thus all this thinking. And I think I have some diagrams around here for this, if you all would like to see them. I mean, this is just one of my many ideas. I have other ideas of how we could utilize the waste nuclear stockpile to create a large amount of heat that could be utilized into electricity for centuries, eons worth of power. We never need burn coal or oil again like primitive monkeys again in our life, and we could use those strictly as natural resources and build up those areas so that there could be industry instead of misery and poverty in those areas. It could be much better for everyone, much better. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Now, today, folks, may be a little something different for many of you. I like to play little games with people sometimes. What would you do if? And we're going to say, what would I do if I could just build an ethno community? How would I order it? If I was to use some kind of Roman urban planning, which I will highly advise for the future ethno states, so we can have more uniform dwellings that are easier produced, less waste of resources, less repetition, can still be highly individualized and made highly unique. You'll see, bear with us. So, our thing is this: the greatest source of energy on this planet isn't petroleum, it's that big ball in the sky. Okay? Wind, tide, hydroelectric power, and the basic power that you can tap from letting water drop from here to there, it's hydroelectric power. It's static water power. Those are immense resources that we can harvest. Okay. Now, I'm not a hippie. I'm not a fool. I understand chemistry very well. Probably better than most of you ever will. Physics too. I'm also a believer in God, and I have I like nature. Okay? You see? Now, call me a well-rounded individual even. Crazy. Doesn't matter. I'm beyond terms. So, just remember this when we're saying this. All these communities will be situated such that sun comes up, sun arcs to the south, okay? Sun goes down. Community sits such that There's maximal amount of sun capture. So there's a bunch of, see, this is the community here. The basic where people will live. Stuff to be grown. Okay. All right. Now, so we understand this. I place life and water and food above anything that anyone's ever going to call like a market. I can't be convinced that my water is less important than some nonsense abstract profit being had in New York. No, I'm not dumb like this, and I'm not going to try to convince you that your water or food is. Do you understand? That's no way. No, our people are more important than these market games because our people create the basis for the entire economy. Do you understand? Okay. Now, therefore, in these communities, waste, human waste, and water will be as separate as possible. Okay? The whole goal will be to have no human waste going back to any kind of water, salt or fresh. Okay? And you ask, how would that work? Well, okay. Semicircle. You have 180 degrees, roughly. Okay? And let's say that this whole thing is, I don't know, 10 acres deep, and it just goes around a 10-acre band. You can have several of these inside each other. Okay. So you have the houses, and you just simply build them up. Put them up on some sort of elevation so that whatever wastewater is goes down. Connect them, utilize them. Use a small amount of solar power to power low speed pumps that just push the stuff along. Now, then you have it go into long, gradual slopes into pipes that have a PVC or, say, a plexiglass top with mirrors that can catch this sun and reflect it at those pipes all day long. And this can be done huge latitudes where there's any amount of sunlight. Sun is an immensely powerful source of energy. You can also use solar power, which low voltage, and put electrodes across the inside of the pipe where they will jig, 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 do the solution all day, electrolysis. This will create peroxides and help sterilize the water. You understand? So you have heat and this electrolysis happening at the same time. This is all really cheap, actually. Electrolysis can be done with welding rods. So, okay, you know. Now, all of this is jobs for the people in the community to do. Something to do. You know, the maintenance is to make sure the mirrors are working, so forth, you know. Okay. Keep the mirrors clean. Okay. All right. You have everything from labor jobs up to highly skilled, technician jobs. Do you see? Just right here. Now, in the end, what would happen is there'd be a separation pool. And the solids would go into what could be used as sort of a spigot, but they will condense down once they're hit with the sun again in a nice open top dome with, again, mirrors to focus the heat into there. The water can be boiled off and more or less sterile and then used in green belts around the treatment facility, which green belts can, say, be made up of fast-growing hardwoods. Those fast-growing hardwoods can be harvested now to go into some kind of biomass burner, okay? And that can provide your community with electricity. Moreover, if you dry out the biomass waste enough, all the toilet paper, everything can just be torched right along with this biomass, the other biomass, And then you just have some ash to deal with. The ash, of course, is a fertilizer, which will help the plants grow. You say carbon dioxide? I say great, because if you're growing crops or whatever, you can pump this carbon dioxide into the greenhouses at certain times of the year and other places you wish to have things grow more rapidly and create more rapid photosynthesis, thus faster plant growth. You see? We're big on integrated systems. Yeah. Now, so you have all this ash, you have this human waste, you have this gray water, and you have an agricultural community that wants to grow food and vegetables and oil crops and fiber crops to make clothes, Okay? So right there you have heating oil, food, okay? And your basic clothing provided, flax and cotton and such. And you also have fertilizers for it. And you've used what could be a poison, your pee and your poo and the rest that goes down the toilet, and turned it into something valuable to the community and provided jobs. And moreover, it's really, really hard for a bunch of leftoids to call us alt-righters backwards, barbarians, savages, la-di-da-di-da, when we're proposing future cities of tomorrow that are simply head and shoulders of anything above any of their idiotic proposals. Right. Very difficult, you know. Because now, remember, this could be rigged to be very much carbon neutral. You know, you could say also, with this biomass, if you had excess, also make fuel. Gasoline, diesel, avgas. It can be used directly, the CO, the carbon monoxide, as an engine fuel, which would be able to propel all the machinery in this community, which you could use as a fumigant in the greenhouses. Just seal them off, pump the carbon monoxide up to 50, 60,000 parts per million, and allow everything biological in there to die besides your plants, which would thrive. No chemicals, bug-free crops. You see? Better chemistry for a better world of tomorrow. You know? Simple Simon. Keep it simple, Simon. So you have this hardwood. Now look, so you have excess carbon dioxide, so you create more green belts around the area to control and focus the wind where you want it. Because remember, trees shape wind, or they help shape wind. You know? Trees also act as carbon reservoirs. So, you know, your local house that has whatever carbon dioxide it's producing, heating, this, that, the other, can just be piped right out and go up a spigot and go into the forest. Instead of being wasted into the atmosphere directly, it can go be applied directly to things that can be useful to everyone. It's not real hard for the foresters to understand there's going to be a metal pipe every X amount of feet. Don't cut that down. You have to be kind of stupid not to be able to do this. And we're high IQ people, I'd like to think. See? This can be done with a variety of trees and a variety of landscapes. You know, you can, it has a lot of applications. Now, the basic idea in these little communities would be to just give everyone a certain amount of arc degrees around this and just out back to how far it goes and then cap it off, you know. I would go with the people who were actual farmers would have the most in the outer band. The inner band would be the, you might call them the people who have better jobs taking care of these things. And the furthest innest band might be the higher elite. They'd have the best place, but on the other hand, they'd also have the smallest allotment of land, but they'd also do the least amount of manual labor. So, trade-offs. This is hierarchy, this is division of labor, this is reality. Do you know? It's non-unreasonable. And really, all this takes is basic engineering that humans are perfectly capable of, would have been for a long time, right? The key thing is, too, is that all of this can be designed so that the houses themselves, this is another thing I'd like to get to in this tape, the houses themselves, I have it around here. I would not make them stick above ground houses. This is inefficient. No. You ever seen The Hobbit? Something very much like that, except for it would be concrete and it would have a drain pad around it, you know, right, to drain water away, and then a living roof of, it could be anything, really. Anything that struck your fancy. This is one of those individual things, as long as it's not a tree and as long as it doesn't have invasive roots. That's a huge variety of things. A huge variety of things you can grow there. I mean, okay, right. Depends on growing zones and all that. So, you see, this saves on heat. It further makes it more efficient, I guess. And here's what I would do. All the water that drained off of these houses and was saved, I would just send out to a main reservoir pond type situation. Okay? Also have a well attached to each house. Have a wind-powered wind generator and a mechanical wind pump. Now the wind generator would be used to generate hydrogen. This hydrogen would be used for the electrical needs of each house, such and so forth. It's simple, it's primitive, it's efficient. Boom. You know? The only waste is water, and again, that can just be piped out and dripped off into some kind of, green belt, some sort of hedge that goes between everyone's house, that kind of simple thing. It's not rocket science. It all can be done because, oh, that's right, we're civilized people we live in the most advanced age ever. I don't see why we shouldn't take advantage of that. Now, a lot of these ideas seem primitive and backwards and simple to you, but the fact is that underground houses are more secure. It's much harder to break into a house where you have to actually climb through a little window or a small door. Can't come through the wall if it's underground. I got to do a little more work then. Further, they're more compact. Each unit can be separate. Now, what I would do is that any excess power from the wind, solar, and this hydrogen, because I would have a full spectrum on each one of green energy. I mean, why not? For one thing, again, it's impossible for these lefty, greeny bastards to try to condemn us when we want to live in nicer, more nature, carbon neutral situations than they're willing to. Because remember, I'm not going to tell you that this isn't going to be a lot of work. It will. These people who live in these outer farming ones, they'll be farmers, farming 5-10 acres, okay? The inner ones will probably be more like livestock, have a lot of chickens and such. But again, after about 200 chickens, it's some work. And the bottom people, well, you can say brain work isn't work, but I mean, they will have to stress a lot on keeping all this managed and cooperated and organizing it and keeping the systems going, some of which are quite elaborate, I'm not going to lie. But again, the trade-off is they'll be able to live in a nice, clean, rural-ish town, you know what I mean? Because the thing is, I'm thinking this to be about, 40 acres long here. So this ark's humongous. So these people have plenty of space between them. We're not talking about some little, everyone on top of it. No, I don't do ant piles. So hell with that. I like it when I can go out my yard and pee and my neighbors don't know I'm doing it. That's how I like it. You know what I'm saying? So, you see, I'm not talking about anything crazy, but I am saying that to have this, you'd have to work. And I'm saying that, well, if the Zog wanted to get mad and cut this ideal community off from power, who'd care? It would be self-sufficient already, do you see? And because of this biomass choice, and because of the harvesting of the waste choice, and because, there would be basic fundamentals that couldn't be cut off. Gas, oil, grease. You get it? Okay? Then this is where these professionals come in, these chemists, these physicists, and this is where they're in their keep. Do you see? See how this works? It's a mutual, it's a class collaboration thing. It's not a hatred of any one thing. You see? Now, of course, we should point out this is in the context of a white ethno-state. Hey, the blacks, if they can plan something like this out and make it happen, God bless them. But we're not going to help them, and we're not going to multi-cult with them. We want our own, and this is what I want to do with it when we have it. Thank you. Partially.